What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another spring practice report video. It is Tuesday, April 5th. I've been talking about this for a couple weeks. This is it. This is the weekend. Tons of games on this weekend. We will try and preview some of those on Friday's show. I will also recap a bunch of those probably over the weekend and going into next week. But for today, we are back. We did not have a show yesterday, so let's take a ride around the country. All right, so we are going to start in Texas with a couple schools here. There is a quarterback competition in at least two of these schools, and one of them in Texas Tech, we have not gotten to learn a lot about what's even going on there, much less the quarterback battle. Some of that due to not a lot of media or anybody getting into practices, and there hasn't really been any rumors coming out of this. So Kitley has done a really good job of keeping a lot of this stuff like in-house. But today, in the past couple of days, I've actually gotten some media and some other stuff going on there. And there's really three guys, for those of you who don't know, they were all put on display over the past 2 days. Tyler Shuck, Donovan Smith, and Baron Morton. Now, Shuck has supposedly been the most accurate, especially when throwing deep. He's shown, or at least showing in spring practices, to have a really, really good arm. Donovan Smith, who also has a strong arm, is throwing a very catchable ball, but the talk has been that he has a very long release, and that has been coming an issue, at least in camp. And last but not least, Baron Morton has come in looking bulkier and somehow taller, according to some people. He is a lightning quick release and has been the best so far in practice at throwing on the run. He has also been connecting with a couple wide receivers. There has been some stuff put out on Twitter here of the past couple days. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw one that I tweeted out that dropped today about just a beautiful bullet pass he had over a defender. Still really no clarity, and I don't really expect there to be any. I still think Donovan Smith is the favorite to win this job, but at least all the positivity about what Baron Morton has been doing and how good he looks is a good thing for me, because I'm a big fan of Baron Morton. You know, I no disrespect to Tyler Shuck, but I kind of feel like it's over for him at this point. It's likely going to be Smith or Morton. And definitely, I would lean Smith based on what he did last season, but Baron Morton surprising and playing well, I think, is really good. I should also mention that Taj Brooks is at 5'11", 220 right now, has been phenomenal as well. He's shown a lot of quickness and has been extremely impressive in the receiving aspect of the game, including making a beautiful one-handed catch and a catch over his head in practice as of late. There has also been an inside receiver / running back, Tredarius Townsend, who has made a couple nice catches as well. And then Miles Price has been connecting on a couple big plays with Baron Morton. So Miles Price, a guy that I talked about last year, I know Felix has been pumping up a lot this offseason, seems to be, at least with Morton, working really well. And I think if Donovan Smith is the guy, he's probably going to do the same thing. But wheels up for a couple guys here. Price, obviously Brooks, and whomever the quarterback is going to be here for Texas Tech. Moving on to Texas A&M, where there's technically a quarterback battle here, or is there? They have had a couple spring scrimmages over the past couple days at Texas A&M, and I'm going to read you the group that has been playing with the first team for the most part. Quarterback, Haynes King, not Mac Johnson. Haynes King has been the QB1, and I'm going to say right now, I've been saying it, I don't see Haynes King losing this job. He was good in one game. I get that. But from the start of spring to at least right now, he has been the guy running with the ones most of the time. And something Felix has always said, you're not just giving those guys reps for no reason. And I do believe that to the most part. There's no way they're continuing to give Haynes King all of these first teams reps if he's not going to be the starter. Does that mean he's on a long leash? Probably not. I mean, a guy like Max Johnson's not just going to come in there and expect not to be able to compete, and I do think he is. But Haynes King has been getting a lot of work with the ones, and I do think he is the likely starter. Anaya Smith is back. He has not been there, at least in the first grouping of spring practices when I was covering stuff on Texas A&M. I have not yet to see him do anything in a practice. He is now. He has been back the past couple practices, and I will also mention LJ Johnson's still not participating, and I have not seen anything on an injury. So again, that has got to be concerning. I don't remember the name of the guy on the second team at running back, but I'll just tell you it was not LJ Johnson. And then wide receivers, and Chase Lane, who I think is locked in right now, is one of the starting wide receivers for the Aggies. He has been there everywhere, even when they're like Max Johnson has moved up, been with the ones. Like Chase Lane has always been with the ones. So Chase Lane's locked in there. Evan Stewart has been the third guy on this list up until recently, where he is now listed as the number 2. He has been thriving in camp. There's been nothing but positive reports out of camp about Evan Stewart. I think he's going to start. And I know that goes against what Jimbo Fisher usually does when it comes to freshmen. But the fact that he's continued to be with the ones and continued to impress and continue to look this good, continuing to now move up. Now he's the number 2. I don't see how he doesn't end up starting. The more interesting one here is that Moose Muhammad III has been running with the ones at least the past 2 practices, where in the past he was running with the 2s. I don't know if he stays here, but Chase Lane and Evan Stewart, for the most part, have been locked in with the ones since the beginning of practice. So I really think this means wheels up for Evan Stewart at wide receiver for the Aggies. All right, last time in Texas, or last school we're going to talk about in Texas, and that is Texas itself. Malika Murphy, the highly touted recruit, is back. He was back in practice today. I mentioned, I believe, on one point last week, it was a Thursday or Friday video, that he was back in practice in a walking boot. He is now back. He was throwing today, making throws. So it's good to see him back at it. I don't know that his future is at Texas, but at least he is back in practice and throwing. I've talked about this a little bit, and it continues to, at least for now, be a battle between Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers. While some will tell you that Card has looked the best, other people are telling you Ewers looks the best. There has been multiple sources, and again, just take this for what it's worth, because they're not willing to come on record, so I don't know for fact who or what. There's someone I know that talks to people at Texas, and then some other stuff that I read. They believe that because it is even at this point that Quinn Ewers is going to get the job. I don't know if that's a good thing for Ewers that's even with Card. Maybe I'm just letting the perception of what Card was last year kind of mess with my mind a little bit, and maybe he has progressed and looked better. There's been a lot of stuff that Sark's offense is very advanced, so maybe that's what's taking Ewers a little bit of time. I believe in Ewers' talent, but the fact that he is still tied with Card, and it is still early, I do still think Ewers gets the job. We saw this last year. I mean, it was literally up until, I think, right before week 1, before Sark named Hudson Card the starter. I would not be surprised if he does the same thing here, because he doesn't want to lose Card if he goes Ewers, and vice versa, although Ewers can't really leave. And so that might honestly play into the decision as well. If Ewers goes into the portal, he has to sit here. He just used his free transfer to come to Texas. Some other things that I'll point out is Isaiah Nayor. I've talked about him a couple times on the spring practice reports. He is just absolutely dominating right now. And what I will say is that they are not even saying he's a 2. They're calling him the 1B to Worthy's 1A. He is winning contested catches. He's outrunning people. He's finding open space. Like, how good Nayor has been is another reason why I'm so excited about this Texas team and offense, and why I believe so much in Quinn Ewers, because with Sark, with these weapons, this offense could be absolutely special, especially with as good as Nayor has been. And last but not least, we know that Jaleel Billingsley transferred here, and he's getting, the majority of the reps. He has the relationship with Sark. But from everything I've read and everything I've heard, it's actually the 5-star freshman and as Sanders that has stood out over all 3 of them. So Sanders has just come in, looked really good. He's been explosive, and from everything I read and saw, he has been the best tight end here at Texas. So Billingsley, I think, is going to definitely be the guy, because he's got the relationship with Sark, and I think he's going to be the main guy here. But Sanders could be the play for the future. I lied. I said Texas was going to be the last team in Texas. We're actually going to talk about TCU as well really quick. Before we do, let's just make sure. That is it. I promise we are done with the state of Texas after this. TCU. Today was the first time that Max Duggan took a majority of the first team reps. So they've been splitting it about 50-50. Today, Dugan got a majority of that, and he looked really good according to reports. He had an extremely impressive play where he bought time and then had like a sidearm throw to Quentin Johnson over the middle, who almost took it for a touchdown. That being said, Chandler Morris still had a good day as well, but he wasn't really running with the ones and did not get as much work as Dugan did. I still think this is likely an even competition right now. And I'm not going to read too much into the fact that Dugan did the majority with the ones today than Morris did. But Morris has been impressive from everything I've read. I wanted to bring up the quarterbacks because Sam Jackson is continuing to just get a lot of pub out of TCU, and he's the third quarterback. So, like, he's not going to play for you this year, but I will continue to say, like, in C2C leagues, you likely have a 45-man roster. Like, I think I'm willing to take a bet on Sam Jackson at the end of my drafts now because he's continuing to get all this talk about like how good he has been. He's been impressive, the zip on his ball, how well he's been throwing it. Like, Sam Jackson has been absolutely wonderful for TCU from everything I've read and everything I've seen over the past couple weeks. Now, he didn't run with the twos today. He did recently, but not today, and he actually did throw a pick. That being said, everything else I've read has been phenomenal. Dykes has practically made it known at practice that this offense is going to run through Quentin Johnston, not the running game. So that is also very interesting for me. Our own Chris Moxley has talked about how he thinks Johnston can go out there and have a massive season this year and really kind of vault himself close to what JSN and Butte are. He won't be in that tier, but close, maybe separate himself, put him in a tier below, but above the next guys. And it does seem like Dykes wants to run the offense through him for sure. Last but not least, on the running backs, Keandre Miller, Amani Bailey, and Amari DiMercado are all running well and running with the ones. Miller has been extremely impressive, but Bailey continues to be the guy that everybody is saying is the difference maker. So I know there's a lot of you in the Discord who are going to be watching this and you're going to say, hey, like, I'm still going with Keandre Miller. I'm just telling you what I'm reading, what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from everything I've listened to. Amani Bailey is the guy that everybody continues to say is the best running back on this team right now. He's been the most explosive. He's been the most different. Does that mean he's going to be the starter? No. But I think if there's a running back right now that I want to have that's on the TCU roster, it's a Bailey. It's Amani Bailey, and it's not Keandre Miller. All right, we are going to go up to Wisconsin. Not much coming out of Wisconsin. I did want to touch on the quarterback, Deacon Hill, who on 7-on-7s this week has been really impressive. The ball just jumps out of his hand. He has just been really good and really impressive from everything I've read. I don't know that you ever want to roster a Wisconsin quarterback, at least not with what Peyton Manning, or I'm sorry, Graham Mertz has done there as of late. But a guy to watch for the future, Deacon Hill with Wisconsin. Last, we are going to wrap up with two more Big Ten schools. Michigan, they had their spring game. Obviously, Donovan Edwards looked extremely impressive in that game. You have also got Cade Mcnamara has all been announced as the starter for this team. Talked about it early on in the spring practice reports, right? Like, we know that, that J.J. McCarthy's got the shoulder injury. Now, they are saying that he should be ready by summer, so that is somewhat good news, but at this point, I don't think he's going to be able to beat out McNamara, and if McNamara plays well, I don't know that McNamara even loses the job this year, which is definitely not good for J.J. McCarthy. Blake Corum has been healthy and is having an incredible spring, and Donovan Edwards, even in that game, has continued to show in camp that he is a budding superstar. They've been using him more and more in the passing game and trying to get him carries on the outside, swing passes, screen passes, everything. I expect Donovan Edwards is going to be in for a big season this year for Michigan. Last but not least, what is expected to be the starting wide receivers. So we did see Ronnie Bell was there. He was dressed in street clothes, but he is expected to be ready by the season. The expected X is supposed to be Cornelius Johnson, Z, Andrell Anthony, who obviously blew up there at the end. I believe had that really good play against Ohio State as well. And the slot is going to be Ronnie Bell. Second team at X, Darius Clemens, Z, Roman Wilson, and the guy I really like, AJ Henning, there in the slot. So those are kind of the expected top six for Michigan. Again, I don't know how much that's going to matter for fantasy with McNamara. If McCarthy was the quarterback, I'd probably be a little bit more excited. But again, McNamara was a really good game manager last year. He's likely going to be one of these guys fantasy rolling, I would think. Last but not least, we're going to go to Ohio State and discuss a little bit about what's going on there. If you were in our Discord, you saw at least some of what I talked about. We've seen the reports. If you have not seen them, Devon Brown has been absolutely amazing in practice. Ryan Day is just like infatuated with how good Brown has been. There was a clip that was on Twitter about him scooting up in the pocket and then throwing a nice little throw to the sideline for Mecca, who caught it. And he's continued to show that he's shown more athleticism than people expected out of him. He's actually been running with the twos of late, splitting with McCord. Obviously, as someone who's a big fan of McCord, that's not great news. You would like to hear that McCord is running with the twos, but Ryan Day has kind of recommitted that McCord is the backup. And even McCord gave a little bit of an interview. Is like he feels sometimes like he's really far behind because of how good CJ has looked, but at the same time, he knows he's one snap away from being the starter. Because if anything, God forbid, were to happen to CJ or anything like that. So I don't think that McCord is going anywhere, but Brown has looked really good. But that brought up some talks about Mecca, who again caught that pass. He's looked really good in practice. And so I text one of my guys who works there, and what he told me, I just asked him, is like, hey, we're trying to figure out, like, where is Mecca lining up? Is he lining up in the slot? Is he lining up at X, Y? Like, where is he lining up most of the time in practice so we can get an idea of what we may be seeing from him this year? This is what I got back. He lined up in the slot and rotated with Julian at Z 50-50. He and Fleming sharing that spot, though, isn't too shocking, right? To be honest, Mecca has been the third best receiver in camp, and you could argue the second best. Most of that's not that surprising until you hear that last statement. Now, I don't think that's a shot at Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's just saying we knew Marvin Harrison Jr. was going to be good. We had questions about Mecca, and I think that's just showing how big of a step Mecca has taken this offseason to competing. I said it before, Nate Marquise at CFF Nate, who works with us over at C2C, is one of our main CFF guys. He posted some stuff. I mentioned that I think Mecca could break that second-year breakout that Mike Valeri, who is at FF Dirty Mike, posted, like, if you can, second-year receivers get over 900 yards, and I think it's like 2 or 3 touchdowns. And I said I thought Mecca could do that because I thought he was going to be part of the rotation. It sounds like he might beat out Fleming, which would be huge because, in my opinion, we know defenses are trying to key in on JSN. And then I think that gives you Marvin Harrison and Mecca. Going to be really interesting to see what happens with them. But Mecca, I think, skyrocket emoji up right now with what he's done at practice. And they do have their spring game this weekend. So we will see what he looks like. That'll do it for today's episode of the Spring Practice Report. I apologize. I feel like my internet has been a little bit spotty. I've got a bunch of people over here right now mooching off my internet. I'm looking at all y'all. Anyways, we will be back again tomorrow with another spring practice report. Going to focus more on the Pac-12 and some more SEC tomorrow. So everybody have a great day.